I went for a longer walk today because my walk was cut short yesterday morning. And I wanted to leave my things here at home. So I didn't bring my wallet and I didn't bring my phone. But I decided to bring my driver's license and $10 just in case I could get hit by a car. And I'd want people to know who I am. It could happen. So I brought my driver's license and my keys and $10 and I went for a walk. And I started to contemplate my death. And I imagined what would happen if I died tomorrow. Would I feel fulfilled in my life? Will I feel like my relationships are all positive? Or are there things that I want to repair? I can't change the past, but I can certainly repair the future. And as I went for my walk, I went past a park, and there's a homeless man who camps out. This is down a long road, away from all of the people. And he just camps out over there. He's got his shopping cart, and it's got its plastic bags on the sides of it. And he was just sitting in his chair by his cart on the side of the road. And he wasn't bothering anybody, and he wasn't panhandling, and he wasn't doing anything. He was just sitting there, camping out with his shopping cart. And I wondered what his life must have been like. And I've seen this guy around town. I've seen him in stores. He has some money, but he doesn't panhandle. So I wonder where he gets it and why he chooses to stay on the street, if that's his choice. I've never had a conversation with him, so I don't know what his background is, what his choices are, what predicaments he may have been in, and whether he was punishing himself for something from his past, if he was punishing himself in some way in his solitude on the side of the road. And it made me think about my father. My father lives in a van, and he does so by choice. It's not a bad situation. He wanted to pursue van life. He went and he bought a very expensive van. Not what you would imagine, not some beaten up old white work van with ladders on top of it. This is a very nice van. And I don't know if he's going to do that permanently or if he's going to switch to a more stationary home. But my father lives in a van, and I speak to him on occasion, and I was wondering about his life and his choices, and his choice to live in a van, and I think about our choices to live in houses and apartments and stationary locations. That works for most people. It doesn't work for everybody, though. And imagine having that mobile lifestyle, being able to go anywhere that you want at any moment in time, not being locked down to a physical location, not being locked down to a job that you have to go to every day at the same place. I work from home. I could actually be more mobile if I wanted to, though my wife has a corporate job where she does commute to work, so that would be something we would have to consider. But I thought about my father, and he's retired, and he has some time left. I don't know how much. Could be 10 years, could be 20 years. But eventually he will die. We all die eventually. And in the time that we do have, I do think about making sure that I've communicated with him, to the extent that I'd like to. And for me, as a somewhat solitary person, I don't reach out as much as most people would. We talk on the phone, maybe once a month, something like that. We see each other a couple of times a year. And I wonder if that's enough. For me, it's enough because that's just my personality. But I wonder if it's enough for other people. Is it enough for a parent to see their child a few times a year? Or does a parent want to see their offspring more than that? It depends. So I thought about my father, and I thought about this man on the side of the road, and I thought about myself, and I walked a little further, and I thought about stopping and saying hello to this homeless man to find out his story. Maybe he wanted to talk to people. Maybe he just didn't know how to approach others in conversation. Maybe. But then I thought if that was the case, he would have put himself in a situation where he would be more likely to have conversations. He wouldn't be by the side of the road by himself, away from all of the people. His positioning told me that he wanted to be left alone, and I left him alone. And I walked a little further, and I walked through a park, and there were people jogging, and this is in the morning, but during the workday, not terribly early. And they were my age, and a little older, and a little younger, and I wondered, what are these people doing? Don't they have jobs? But then I thought, well, they might wonder the same thing about me, and I do have clients, I do have a business, I do make a living, and I do so in a way that I have a little bit more freedom in the sense that I'm not locked to a desk from 9 to 6 every day in the same location. It has its good points and its not so good points. I force myself to go to the coffee shop when I need to be around people so that I don't end up socially isolated. It's a bad place to be. So I walked through this park, and there were these people walking and jogging and riding bicycles, and I saw one woman. She was a little bit older, and she was sitting on a bench, and she was doing some sort of exercise sitting on a bench. It was like when you go to the gym and you use that machine and you go like this. And she was doing this on the bench, just sitting there. And I wondered if maybe it was some form of Tai Chi or something else, but the reality is it didn't really need a name. It was just her thing. And what impressed me was she didn't care what people thought about what she was doing. Most people would probably look at her and wonder, why is she doing this? But she was doing it, and it made her happy, and that's good. And I walked a little further, and I turned around, and I ended up on the same side of the street as this homeless man. And I thought, I don't want to bother him in his home, his campsite, his corner away from the world. Because I wouldn't want somebody coming up to me in my living room and starting a conversation out of nowhere. That would be uncomfortable. It doesn't matter if it's uncomfortable for me, because that's my choice, but I wouldn't want to put him in an uncomfortable situation. So I thought, I'll just walk by, and if I make eye contact with him, I'll just give him a nod. I won't start a conversation. I won't intrude into his life. I'll just give him a nod. If that's what he wants, he would return my eye contact. And I saw his cart, and I didn't see him yet. As I approached, finally he emerged from behind the cart, sitting in a chair. And I glanced at him for about 2 seconds, and he didn't look back. He just looked straight ahead. And so I kept going, and I didn't nod, but I got a much closer look at him than I had ever gotten before. And he was a little bit older, and his eyes were very red. And I wondered why his eyes were so red. He didn't strike me as the sort of person who would have a drug problem. I've seen him around town, and I've seen him screaming at times. I think it could be schizophrenia or Tourette's or something. I don't know, I'm not a doctor, but there's something mental going on with him, and I don't know that he can be helped. But he found his peace. He found his corner away from the world, and he sits there every day, and he takes his cart into town on occasion. I see him. And he spends money. He has money. And sometimes he listens to his earphones. I see that too. But I left him alone because that's what he wanted. But I did wonder what he left behind.